I came across an interesting article. This is from Sports Illustrated, and I'll give the writer credit to it. Let me see here. Who is the writer for this? Jeremy Brenner is the writer for this article. And they talk about breaking the curse for Falcons quarterback Desmond Ridder. And this was an interesting stat, and I give him credit for pulling this up. Since 2013, so that's a decade ago, only Mike Glennon and Jacoby Brissett have more than 30 starts in their career. Both of those players are journeymen. Neither can say that they have been a franchise quarterback. And yes, that is true. And now, again, obviously, where most of your first-round quarterbacks come from is top part of the draft, right? First-round guys, high-caliber guys at the very top of the draft, right? That's where you find most of the top quarterbacks, saying about the first top 15, 20 picks of the draft. And that's historically, again, where you're finding the best quarterbacks. But I think the thing that makes Desmond Ridder a little bit different from a Jacoby Brissett or from a Mike Glennon, who it's interesting that the two guys that have made 30 starts have been guys that are North Carolina State quarterbacks, and they essentially followed one right after the other. There was a year in between. Glennon played through 2012, and then Brissett had to sit out a year for 13, and then he started in 2014. But interesting that basically the two NC State quarterbacks that followed one another are the guys that have made, the most starts over the last decade as far as a starting quarterback picked in the third round. But here's the difference. And I know that these things necessarily don't matter, when you look at transitioning from the NFL from college into the NFL. But Mike Glennon and Jacoby Brissett in their final 2 years, where they put up their big numbers in their final 2 years, they were only 15-11 in their final 2 seasons as college quarterbacks. 15-11 combined record over a 2-year period. And NC State didn't really do anything, right? I mean, they've been a floundering program. They had some success under Phillip Rivers, when they had Norm Chow and all that going on. And okay, they had a little bit of success, here or there. Just a few years ago with Finley and Chubb and all those guys, they had some success, but they've never really been a successful franchise. And so again, Mike Glennon, Jacoby Brissett, they put up nice numbers. They put up good numbers. I think Glennon was a 30 touchdown quarterback in college, but they were 15-11. Desmond Ridder for his college career was 42-6. He took a program that certainly is not at the level that NC State has been and elevated them to where they got themselves in the national semifinals. They were the little engine that could. They broke the mold as far as being a group of 5 team that found its way into the playoffs. And again, obviously, I know that was a really talented team that final year. Sauce Gardner is maybe the best cornerback now in the NFL. A lot of really good players on that team. But certainly Desmond Ridder as the trigger man had a lot to do with that. And while I understand that some of those things don't translate from college to pro, the fact is one of the biggest reasons that I like Desmond Ridder coming out of college, and I was excited when he was my favorite draft pick when the Falcons took him a couple years ago, was that he's a winner. And there is something, there is an intangible element about, are you a quarterback that wins games or not? Jacoby Brissett has been a serviceable quarterback. Mike Glennon is basically, one step above a bum. Okay. I mean, let's be real. I mean, that those two guys, are not very good, and they didn't have a whole lot of success even at the college level. Desmond Ridder was a guy who won a whole crap ton of games in college. I think he's got one of the 5 most wins in college football for Cincinnati. And you can say, well, what's the competition like? Yeah, but normally guys don't elevate their program to that kind of level. Normally guys don't elevate their program to the level of being a national semifinalist in college football at Cincinnati. That's reserved for Georgia, Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State. I mean, that's reserved for those programs. That's not reserved for, the Cincinnati, University of Cincinnati. So the fact is that this kid is a winner through and through. And I think the other difference is this offense doesn't have to be quarterback reliant. Like, this offense doesn't have to put all of the weight on the shoulders of the quarterback. I think in the Matt Ryan era, it would be fair to say that, Matt was the focal point of the offense. And I'm not saying that quarterbacks aren't a focal point of offenses, but again, Matt was the focal point of the offense. This offense is built to where he doesn't have to be the focal point. Our running game, our short passing game, our offensive line, like that's going to dictate a lot of our success. Now, look, Desmond Ridder goes out and has an MVP caliber season. I've said before, look, they're in the Super Bowl. I mean, that's the reality of it. When your quarterback has an MVP caliber season, you find yourself in the Super Bowl at that point. So I'm not expecting that out of Desmond Ridder. But Desmond Ridder doesn't have to be a guy that carries the weight of this team on his shoulders. He doesn't have to be a guy that puts up gargantuan numbers. They're not going to let him throw it 500 times, I don't believe, this season. They're going to rely on their run game. They're going to do what they do best on offense. They have a playing personality. As my friend Bo Bach would say, they have a playing personality. And that doesn't necessarily revolve around the quarterback. Now, look, I think Desmond Ridder is going to have a good year, and I need him to be good in the red zone. And I think he can be a 25 touchdown quarterback, where again, if you throw 25 touchdowns in an NFL season, that's a really good number. Okay. May not be the 40 that Aaron Rodgers puts up or Tom Brady or Pat Mahomes or what have you, in that kind of class, but you're a 25 touchdown quarterback. You've had success in this league. I think that's the biggest difference, is that they don't ask Desmond Ridder to have to carry this offense, that they're not looking at Desmond Ridder to carry this offense. There's enough personnel around him that if they get the ball in other people's hands, that they can help shoulder the load. And they're not a desperately quarterback reliant offense. And it's not a matter of making guys better than this and the other. You have a lot of high caliber, high draft picks that you've selected for your offense. First round offensive linemen, obviously London and Pitts, top 10 picks. You have a lot invested in other guys on this offense. Bijan Robinson now, right? So Desmond Ridder doesn't have to be the focal point. And he's a smart quarterback who doesn't turn the football over. And that's a big reason why I think that he's going to have a lot of success in this league, is because he's a winner, he's a smart quarterback, and he doesn't turn the football over. If you can be a winner and not turn the football over, you'll play for a long time in this league. I don't care if it's a starter, backup, whatever. If you're that kind of quarterback, you can be around for a long time. So let's see if Desmond Ridder can break the curse when all is said and done, that 30 starts is kind of that magical number that Mike Glennon and Jacoby Brissett have had over the last decade. I think Desmond Ridder is going to be much better than that, and hopefully it starts this season. All right, as you listen into Hittin Hard with Jon Chuckery, make sure that you go into our whatever podcast platform that you're listening on and let us know that you're an everyday listener to the program. So we like to call them our everyday or so. We thank you so much for being a part of our ever-growing community and obviously being on this journey and this ride with us. So let us know on whatever platform, leave us a comment that you're an everyday listener to the program, as we said, our everydayers.